Hey, John,
Hey, Nick.
how's
Wow.
how are things in the shed?
Wow. It's hot in here. Yeah, you're looking very cool and comfortable with your hat on and out by the lake. How did I draw the shed card in this thing? It's 100. It's 100 and some degrees outside here in the shade, and it's 105 here in the shed.
Let me remind you, John, that Wales is the land of drizzle. So the next time we talk, I could be under an umbrella here.
Ah, well, misery, Nick. This is Daddy. I'm surrounded in this shed by Daddy Longlegs. I don't know what you call those things in Wales, but they like it dusty. They like it hot. They like it dark, whatever. And so I got my studio set up here in the shed so you can actually see me. I think I'd much rather be by the lake in Wales, frankly.
I'm bothered. There's a few birds around. There's a couple of squirrels. I think the rabbits have turned in for the evening, but
Great. I've got these spider cricket, things, sprickets we call them, and daddy long legs that are quivering on the door to my shed. I should have taken a picture of this biomass on the side of the door shaking when I opened the thing. My wife won't come in here because of this thing. Anyway, but here we are in the shed, and
yes.
I am happy to be part of this Kanreki celebration. Yay, Kanreki! I love it.
Kanreki. So I forget. I continually forget actually that you have lived in Japan for 4 years. Is that right?
Yeah, way back in the day, way back in the early 90s. But you're much more the Nipponophile than I'll ever be, Nick. I mean, you travel there almost every year on business, right? I mean, this is part of
Yeah.
your life. Okay. But I learned about the importance of the 60th birthday of Japanese people before I lived there. I first saw when I was living and studying with a Japanese man and his family outside Boston, Michio Kushi. His former students, family, and friends flew in from all over the world to celebrate his second birth on his 60th birthday.
Yeah, it's a huge deal in Japan. So maybe we should explain to the guys that are watching actually what Konreki is and what it means. So Kan is means the return or coming back, and Reiki is the calendar. Now the common to all of East Asia, they use the Chinese zodiac symbols for the years. So there's a set of 12 different animals, one for each year. But each cycle of 12 is also associated with one of the five Chinese elements. So wood, fire, water, metal, and soil. Um, so each 12-year cycle also swaps to one of the five elements, so that the complete calendar of years goes round in cycles of 60. Now, that's really important, particularly in Japan, in terms of birthdays, because when you come to your 60th birthday, essentially the calendar has come all the way round to the point at which you joined it. And it's treated in Japan almost like a second birth. So they wear red, which is a color that's traditionally associated in Japan with wealth and good fortune, but primarily with newborn babies. So it is hugely important. So this year,
The outfits they wear are really funny looking, but
yeah. So so this year is the year of the snake, and the element is wood. So this is the wood snake. Now, somebody that was born 60 years ago, that's 1965, would therefore be celebrating their Kanreki this year.
anybody Nick, who was born in 1965?
Well, there is somebody I can think of that was born on the 31st of July, 1965, and that is a certain Miss Joanne Rowling. So she will be celebrating her Kanreki this year. So her birthday month has just started. It's going to be a long month because her birthday's right at the end of it. Now, judging from her Twitter account, she's already in a different time zone. So my feeling is her celebration has started, except we haven't had our invitations yet, John.
Yeah, not invited. Not invited to the party. Thanks, Joe. All right. I'm not going to take this oversight on her administrative staff personally. It's clearly this is just, maybe they're in the mail. It's a little early, but I think she's already on the yacht. Are we following her yacht around the world yet? I mean, where she is? I'm not going to take this. What we're going to do here is we're going to take this opportunity to celebrate J.K. Rowling's life and work, even if it means hours in my shed this month.
Well, you've got
with
all that.
My friends, the daddy longlegs. This is supposed to be the this is you said this is the wood snake, right?
Wood snake.
Do you know your metal, your element and animal, Nick?
No, I don't. No, I'm afraid I don't.
Seriously, Nick. What kind of Japanese person are you? Anyway, I am a metal ox.
Okay.
I am a metal ox. That sounds terrible, but it's actually quite friendly, apparently. Anyway, so I'm gonna spend my time out here in the shed this month with you, sitting by your beautiful, cool lake under an umbrella, probably, to talk about Rowling's life and work. Happy birthday!
I have lots of wood here, so it's quite nicely forested. No snakes, so we have a few adders, but none around here. Do you have rattlesnakes with you, John?
Yeah, well, not in my shed right now. There's probably some garden snakes in the firewood stacked over there, but yeah. Anyway, I hope what I'm hoping to do here is have some fun. This should be grins and giggles. I want to review each of the 21 stories that Rowling has published as novels, screenplays, the play script, even though it's not really by her, but and I want to introduce to longtime fans and new readers the way that we read the books, the way the author herself has said she writes her books, and the way naturally that you and I think that they should be read. Hence your lake
and your shed, John.
God.
So maybe we should explain a little bit about this lake and shed metaphor. I think the people that have been reading the Substack posts, have been listening to the podcast, will probably know most of this already. But back in December 2019, now that's quite a pivotal month for Rowling. December 2019.
Why was it?
And then again in an article last year in 2024, she wrote about this metaphor, and she terms it her lake of inspiration, which is where I am, and the shed of perspiration. John, is that where you are?
That's where I am, Nick.
So if I quote from this was a program that she recorded for Christmas 2019 for BBC Radio 4.
I think she recorded it actually this month, right? I mean, it was in
it was early
August, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was an early recording. Okay, so this is the words of J.K. Rowling. Well, I've never said this before because I always think it sounds so bonkers. And although it's something I think about a lot, I've always been a bit wary about articulating to anyone else. But I envisage my process thus. I feel as though I go through a lot of trees, which are my day-to-day concerns, what we all deal with all the time. And those I see as trees inside my head. And then I get to a place which is my workplace, where there is a lake and there's a shed. And this is my process. I feel as though the inspiration is the thing that lives in the lake. that's very mysterious that I never see, but it hands me stuff. And then I have to take this unformed stuff. Sometimes it can be reasonably formed, sometimes it's very blobby, like molten glass or something. And then I have to take it into the shed, and there I have to work on it. And because I've had this metaphor in my head for many, many years, when I need something that I've written, I have a sort of shorthand that I say to myself, too much lake, not enough shed. When I go back over something, I should have spent longer in the shed. And then there's some bits you think, oh, that's too sheddy. I'm not sure you added a lot out of the lake that day. And in a dream world, obviously the lake gives you something good, but then you work on it properly in the shed and you turn out the finished product. And I even apply this to other writers. I'll read something and I'll think, that's pure shed.
That really, you have to read the whole thing, and you have to read the 2024 on writing piece because, well, and other things that she said. I mean, for example, she says she never sees the thing in her lake, but now she's told us that she has an exact image of that thing in her lake that was in a movie that she saw. Anyway, if you read the whole thing, she reveals that she understands that the thing in her lake is her unconscious mind. Yeah, that's her inspiration. Consequently, her inspiration is the effluvia of her unconscious aspect, working to resolve her psychological trauma and issues. And this is what really turned the world of Rowling studies upside down. I mean, I know I was halfway through my PhD thesis in 2019. I'd actually got a draft of my PhD thesis, and I totally rewrote it. I mean, the title of my PhD thesis is "A Lake in the Shed." Okay, Rowling admitted what was undeniable, that her biography has a huge influence on the stories that she writes. That it comes from that. But what even her most dedicated readers, the Potter pundits and the serious strikers and that crowd, and the hateful critics, because as you said, December 2019 was the beginning of the trans wars. But none of those groups, her idolaters and her enemies, what they wouldn't do was connect the dots between her life experiences, from her core beliefs to the traumas her unconscious mind was wrestling with, and her written work, which is just bizarre because every author, especially the dead ones, this is just the rule. You have the critical biography because everything has to come out of that person's life experiences and core beliefs somehow. And yet that had been really neglected. And that's largely what we're doing here at Hogwarts Professor.
But that releasing that metaphor to her adoring public, which is you and I, John, that's an invitation, isn't it? Surely, from a writer to say, look, this is how I work. This is where my ideas come from. This is how I envisage me working on those ideas. Isn't that an invitation for us to look at? Okay, so what is she doing in the shed? What is inspiring her in that lake? What is her subconscious delivering up to her?
Yeah, obviously we've got this separated out pretty neatly here. I'm the shed guy and you're the lake guy. But the point you're making there about it being an invitation is really important because, again, I think just out of deference to her, nobody wanted to do the crass thing of saying, look, she's got a really bad relationship with her father, and look at all these bad dads we have inside her book. No one wanted to really just draw those lines because it was right up on the edge of gossip. And yet here's Rowling saying, if you want to understand how I write, my artistry and meaning, it comes from these unresolved psychological issues from my own life and my core beliefs. And then I transform them intentionally with the tools I use inside my shed to make them into archetypal story that everybody can relate to. It's not just Mary Sue type stories. So she's invited serious readers into her lake and her shed.
And I think that's what we've been trying to do with Rolling Studies. So we've moved away, not entirely, but we've moved away from the fan service, from the what's going to be in the next book, what has just been published. Not that we don't get excited about that, because I know we do, but there's some deeper work on the complete opus that we feel we've been invited to at least look at.
Yeah, what we're doing here is pretending that we have a critical biography in hand. We don't. Rowling is very reticent to share any information about her life, and her friends have obviously been put on lockdown about speaking about her if they want to remain her friend. And she's very protective of her family. All credit to her. But we pretend that we know something substantial. And that's not pretending. We know some things about her. And then we're going to step back, pretending that we have her that she's Charles Dickens or William Shakespeare or Jane Austen, or even C.S. Lewis, and that we have some space on her life, and we can see her work as a whole. Because we're over 20 works now. It's not as if, this is Chamber of Secrets is coming out. The second book, from J.K. Rowling, how exciting. And we don't have much, at that point, we didn't have that much to talk about in terms of the scope of her work. But, I wrote my first book about Rowling and her artistry and meaning in 2002. And at that point, we only had 4 books. And yet, with those 4 books, I was talking about her literary alchemy. I was talking about the psychomachia or her soul allegory. I was talking about the Christian content of the series. I was talking about the traditional symbolism involved. I mean, a lot of the tools in her shed were evident very, very early on. And now, after we've seen the 20 books come out with everything from the 7 Corman Stripe books that we have right now, and of course the Potter series, the Fantastic Beasts, Casual Vacancy, Christmas Pig, which I think is going to be her the book everybody will read in survey courses by her, the Ichabod, all of these books and screenplays and the script. We can step back and look at these things now in light of what we do know about her psychological issues, her core beliefs, and connect the dots with the work and use those as lenses to say what she has made of them. Again, she's not just taking the stuff out of her lake and writing pain to brain, as she said once in the Grossman interview, that she's actually is pain to brain to shed, where this very intentional and frankly brilliant author takes that story and turns it into something that the world waits for the next entry. But until you have that space, which we're basically creating here, you don't really understand an author. You don't understand their genius, the magic of the work. You can't get that until you have what she calls her lake of her biographical issues, and then her shed work, which is bibliographical. I mean, there's a, I mean, for those of us inside, by the lake and inside the shed, there's a taxonomy of sorts where you have to start sorting all this information. I mean, we got the 2 big categories. The lake and the shed is it's biographical or it's intentional artistry. But you gotta have subcategories inside those things to sort this information.
You gotta think of a number, John, and just like Rowling, you always come to the same number.
Would it be 7? Okay. The reason that I'm in my shed and Nick is by the lake is that the most important 2 categories of information are the lake categories of data about Rowling's life that we can know or make intelligent guesses about, and the shed phyla about her intentional decisions about how to shape and tell her stories. You know, in the late category of biographical information, you know, in our first Linnaeus types attempts to break these things down and sort them out, there's I think there are four files. You're the late guy, you can dispute that. And in the shed, there are 3 more, which of course, you know, gives us 7. You're the lake expert, Nick. Tell me about the 4 biographical pieces.
Okay, so in the lake there's 4 pillars. So the first, and I would argue probably her most accessible, is about relationships, key relationships. So that's her family, for both good and bad. That's her friends, and it, to some extent, acquaintances, the people that work for her and the people she works with. And also, I would argue, her relationship to other authors. So these are authors, I'm talking about people she's never met, but she is heavily invested in their work. So pillar 1 is all about relationships.
I'm gonna interrupt here, Nick, because I want to say that at this stage in Rowling studies, you're the man. I mean, in terms of key relationships, you found her American cousin. You know, you found, you know, you've been doing the Sean Harris work. You're the person that when Rowling writes a book, you go to the acknowledgments pages first.
I
Okay.
do.
And you break that stuff down. And, you know, the catalog that I created of Rowling's literary, you know, influences, all the authors that she has mentioned and the works that she admires, it was basically your work. B. Groves also was part of that project, in which we tried to, you know, just lay out every possible mention of this and that. I mean, and that's just something that hasn't been done. I mean, it sounds like something obvious. I mean, people know about her mother and her death. They know about the bad dad, and maybe they know about the, you know, something about the sister or the astrologer friends. But really, any person, the foundation thing is their key relationships. And that's really, Nick, stuff that you do there is outstanding.
So thank you. That's nice to know. I mean, this is, for me, it is entirely a hobby. So I gain incredible pleasure from doing this. I don't think I'm the person to write a biography, but I do long for a good critical biography with Rowling's input to come out. But how many? One pillar. I've given you one pillar. Second pillar is, you could call it the heroine's journey, or you could call it the 7 ages of Jo. So Rowling's life is very episodic. So she has episodic periods of growth through her life. I think that's true for everyone, but within Rowling's life, you can quite clearly put a demarcation between childhood or early childhood, education, pre-Portugal, so that's sort of post Exeter, and before she emigrates, that horrible time post Portugal, the Harry Potter success, her marriage, and I think the final stage, the stage where she's at now, I'm going to call it the period of power. So this is the period where, you know, she is an incredibly accomplished author. She's an incredibly accomplished philanthropist, and she is a powerful personality on the world stage that can get things done. So that's pillar 2, 7 ages of Jo. Pillar 3.
We got key relationships And we've got key experiences and
Yeah.
accomplishments.
Yes. Then we've got her core beliefs and concerns. And I don't think this is a hard and fast set in any particular period in her life. So her beliefs, I think, grow and change, and what she's concerned about grows and change. But within that, of course, right now, feminism, Christianity from a family that was not at all religious, psychology, particularly we know she's undergone CBT therapy and thought highly of that therapy. Death, so morality and mortality, responsibility and courage. So the core things that make Jo, whether she was an author or not. These are the things that make her up. So that's pillar 3. So we've got relationships, we've got her personal journey, we've got her belief system, and then pillar 4. So these are, you've termed it her crises. So these are the periods in her life that were disruptive, such that they were foundational. So some of them we know. So she's spoken about the death of her mother, was a foundational experience for her and a key impact on her writing within Harry Potter. We've got the impact of fame on what was still quite a young lady, particularly the incredible reaction, both positive and negative, within the United States on the release of Harry Potter there. We've got her relationship with her father. That, I mean, don't get me wrong, what her current relationship with her father is private, and to my understanding, she has no relationship. But we know that there was a breakup, and certainly from Jo's point of view, it was pretty serious. So she's mentioned that she wouldn't completely lose a relationship unless there was a serious reason behind it. So within her 60 years, actually quite a lot has happened to Jo that you could term a crisis. Each of them, I believe, are foundational, not just for her as a person, but particularly for her art. So, I mean, I'd mentioned
it's the lake. That's the lake. I think
it's the lake. Now, I think a lot of this is conscious. Now, she talks about the lake as being her subconscious gifting her things. I think, she knows enough about psychology to understand where this stuff is coming from. So I think she understands that these themes that we find in her work that parallel crises within her life are important to her art. But we haven't got that critical biography. We haven't really got a huge amount of Rowling first person testimony that we can draw about. So we do need to speculate. And of course, that can mean everyone is comfortable finding parallels within her work from what we know about her life. If we find something in her work and we speculate about something we don't know about her life, that is pure speculation. That's not to say it doesn't have any value, but we're coming at this from a roundabout way. But that's true for the shed as well, isn't it, John?
The pig is an important milestone in this. It was really one of the first books that came out after the trans wars began in 2019, 2020, and Rowling made her Lake and Shed revelations 2019. And in the publicity associated with Christmas Pig, she repeatedly, I don't think there was a single interview she did about Christmas Pig where she didn't talk about the connections between her life and this story. And it was I mean, she mentions one of the characters is her daughter's name, right? Mackenzie. I mean, it's just bizarre how many of these things appear inside the books.
And even even the items that
that's
are
right.
in the land
of the
lost
earrings.
Yeah.
And I think she was making emphasis there. Look, she didn't say this is unique to Christmas Pig. It certainly was unique in the publicity around that. And then there's other things that are absurd, where like Ink Black Heart, where she says, I plotted all this out before the whole fandom thing exploded online, about the transgender controversy. And it really, it isn't consequent to that. And well, it may not have been consequent to that. She may indeed not be lying to us that she had that thing all plotted out. I think she had all of the Strike novels plotted out the same way she had all the Potter books plotted out. But certainly Ink Black Heart is informed by the agonies that she was going through at that time.
I mean, some of those online conversations could have been cut and paste from what she was actually experiencing.
That's right. And so, you can say that's speculative, but it's not, is it speculative to say that the trans wars of 2020 to today, it's been largely resolved since the Cass report and such, but largely resolved on a legal field. It's still playing out and will play out culturally for a generation. But the whole attempts to cancel her and such seem to have passed. That it's has she said she's denied in a way that it informs her work, but it's nonsensical. Of course, it's informed her work. So to speculate that that's one of the key crises of her life, the same way the Potter panic was about the occult elements inside Harry Potter, that's daft. It's speculative, but it's not that way. Now, for me, the speculative part comes to the real questions of what the lake brings up. What the lake brings up is that she says pretty much point blank in both of her Lake and Shed revelations of 2019 and 24 that her unconscious mind is dealing with issues that she hasn't resolved yet, and that's what the story stuff, the substance that she takes into the shed that works. And Nick, we don't know what that stuff was for Harry Potter, for instance, or Cormoran Strike. Nobody has asked that question and come up with a reasonable answer. Maybe we'll get it from the critical biography. But until then, we have to be thinking about that. What was the life event? We know it wasn't her mother's death, because her mother wasn't dead when she had the revelation on the stalled train. Okay, it wasn't her bad relationship with her father, which may have been part of it, but that doesn't really give you the whole gist of the story. There's something else there that we don't know yet. There's another crisis. I mean, you listed 7 crises. Of course, there have to be 7 crises, right? That we know about, but there's got to be a +1 in there that we don't know about yet, and that brings us into the shed. And the relationship of the shed and the lake, as you said, is that is the shed work as speculative as the lake stuff? Yes and no. I mean, I'm the dean of Harry Potter scholars, right? And I've been working for a quarter century plus to understand Rowling's artistry and meaning, and I've largely left all the lake stuff aside. I really took C.S. Lewis's Personal Heresy, and the perennialists that I read, all of them say leave the personal stuff out of it, just study the work, and that's what I've done. And there's a lot more on the shed side because that's where I've been working for 25 years. Again, you know, I've never been able to make a living at it, but I've published what 7, 8 books on the subject, and that shed work is speculative in that Rowling hasn't really talked that much about it, and of course her interviewers almost never talk about it. They never just well, she's been asked on Twitter a few times, especially in that Barmy Army, that wonderful interview she did. But she'll just won't answer those questions. So it's speculative in that it's not confirmed by the author. But as I said, in 2002, I wrote a book that had, 4 of the 7 tools from her shed laid out already. And those things have been confirmed by each consequent book and series. So it's, whether that's speculative or not, or those things are pretty well settled issues, I'm going to say that they're, we know them better than we don't really know for sure. It's not as set as things like her dad issues or the Potter Panic or the CBT crisis, the depression that was suicidal. I mean, those are things that we know. She's talked about those things. We got that. But the tools that she uses, the golden thread plot points that run through all of her work, and the themes that we see from Philosopher's Stone to Running Grave, those are pretty well established and accepted because of their consistent appearances in what she writes. I mean, she even admitted the literary alchemy and the ring writing, sort of. Okay, it's not cut and dry the way her relationships with her dad, Sean Harris, and Neil Murray are. But anyway, there are 7 tools in Rowling's shed. I used to call them the hidden keys or whatever, the keys to unlock, J.K. Rowling. But we're in the shed here, with all my tools. I got my big shearing. I should pull these things off the shelf and bring them into the picture here. I got a giant claw hammer over here because I had to pull these things down. Anyway, there are 7 tools inside Rowling's shed. There's 12 golden threads that run through everything she writes. Just plot points you see again and again and again. And then I think there are 5 essential themes that serious readers of Rowling's writing have to know well enough to recognize in her fiction and to appreciate the magical effect that she has on her readers through their imaginations and her writing. And I'm not going to go through all the 7 tools of the golden threads right here, but there is overlap. Like you talked about, the core beliefs. There's not a mistake that you've identified 5 core beliefs and there's 5 essential themes. That's wouldn't that be a surprise if there weren't a lot of overlap there, right? But the golden threads, I mean, the 7 tools show what a profound reader that she is, because she doesn't invent any of those tools. She doesn't invent ring writing. She doesn't invent soul allegory. She doesn't invent, intertextuality and literary illusion. She doesn't invent any of that stuff. But she creates this stew of traditional tools and creative artistry, using the story substance from her lake to create these stories that have really, I mean, do you have any doubt that this historical period, if the Lord tarries for another century, is not going to be known as the Age of Rowling? I don't. There's just something no more. I mean, she's the most important author as well as the most important philanthropist, and I think the most important feminist alive today.
So we're gonna celebrate, John.
Yeah.
So how are we going to do this?
Woo!
How are we going to do this? So I see we're going to look at each of her works in turn, and I imagine maybe 7 or 8 hour discussions for each book. We'll go through all of the tools that she's using. We'll pull all the biographical allusions out. This is going to be epic, John.
Yeah, I will melt before that happens, Nick. I will literally be a puddle. I'll be in a bucket here next to me in the shed if we're going to do something like that. Yeah, I'm waiting for you to tell me to jump in the lake.
No jumping in the lake, John.
I see the water. It looks like the water table is down there in Wales. It's really hot in my shed here, Nick. So while I'd love a dip in that pond of yours, I don't know. It looks like there's probably more snakes in there than you think. No wood snakes, but anyway, I'm really lazy, and I want this celebration to be fun. So, how about we make our review of Rowling's work really simple? Okay, we take a single book. We'll start with Philosopher's Stone, work our way through Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts and Cormoran Strike, and we'll take each book and we'll take a single point from those 7 categories of lake and shed, information and ideas. You do the lake side, the biography side, and I'll do the 1 point from the shed thing that throws a different light on how these stories have been understood or what makes that work especially important. I think a one-off set of illustrations of taxonomic points randomly chosen from our lake and shed categories, besides being an entertaining review, will be a decent introduction to 4th generation Rowling studies. It's going to be relatively heavy on the biographical or lake elements because it's going to be half the show. It's going to be, there you are, Nick, with your funny hat, as well as because we're going to do the whole spectrum of work that she's done. Now we're not going to do the Quidditch through the ages or something like that, or the the lecture about imagination and perseverance at Harvard, but it is going to be about her work, her opera omnia, as a whole.
So should we? How about choosing a couple of books for an example then? So the first Rowling work that you read was Philosopher's Stone, and the first Rowling work that I read was The Great Casual Vacancy.
I'm sorry. I'm not even going to guess what your lake points are. Would be about those books. You're the lake guy, and really, Nick. Every time you talk about Casual Vacancy being the first book in a great work, I shudder. I mean, maybe it's because of the bugs here. I don't know. Anyway, but taking your examples for Philosopher's Stone, and it's good to start with Philosopher's Stone. It's far and away her best-selling book. If people have read one Rowling book, as a rule, it's Philosopher's Stone. It's the first of the Harry Potter series. It's very short, relatively speaking, to the rest of her work. And if I were going to talk about that, I think I'd talk about Hogwarts. For a couple of reasons. One, just the name is a matter of contention. Rowling is said to named after a flower that she saw on a trip to an arboretum with her sister. And that's totally nonsensical. Hogwarts is the name of a fictional public school in the Molesworth books, and we know that she's read those books. She's testified to the fact that she's read those books, and that really has an important play in how we're supposed to read the Hogwarts books, because she has a model in mind in Molesworth. And if you don't get that, you don't really understand how she works with genre, and that's one of the 7 tools that are inside her shed. So I'd want to go there. For Vacancy, and you and one other Rowling reader that I really admire are really into Casual Vacancy. Okay, but I would for Casual Vacancy. I would go either for the embedded gospel narrative in that book's climax. It's a parable, right? It's not the prodigal son, it's the Good Samaritan. Good Samaritan, yeah. Or I'd go with the pregnancy trap golden thread. It makes we've talked about that in a podcast we did and in my survey. it makes a couple of appearances in that crazy book. Okay, what astonished me, Nick? What are you going to pull out of Rowling's Lake about Philosopher's Stone
Well,
or
Philosopher's Stone.
vacancy?
I'm gonna choose the same point you did, Hogwarts, and her mastery of the genre. But of course, Hogwarts isn't a public school. Hogwarts is a comprehensive school. So, other than the dormitories and the great feasts, I don't know if you've ever had the dubious pleasures of a comprehensive school canteen, but there are no great feasts there. Other than those 2 points, Hogwarts is a very typical state-funded comprehensive school. So all of the main features that we have, the houses, the prefects, the head boy, the head girl, are all common features of a comprehensive school.
I mean, this really is an important thing you're saying. I mean, one, my mind is blown. I've always thought of this as being some sort of Eton-esque environment that they're education they're getting. But I did look forward to this. But you're right. Rowling's readers in, say, India or the United States or Canada don't have an idea of two things. One, they don't understand what a comprehensive school is compared to a public school education and how much the class system is still very much almost like a caste like set inside the United Kingdom. And it shows obviously in where these people go to school, where working class people, lower middle class people go to school, and where the rich people go to school. In the United States, we have it somewhat between public schools and private schools, but it's not so much. And also, in terms of how they read, Americans don't get the jokes, as a rule, again, about schoolboy novels that are really all through the Harry Potter stories. If you don't understand Tom Brown or Molesworth and all these things, it's really a large part. It's an entire category of English literature. You know, it's popular fiction, certainly, but I'm confident that Nick, that you probably read a schoolboy series or a schoolgirl series before you read Harry Potter.
Yes, absolutely.
And as a rule, there were 6-book series, but as I can tell you as a fact, well, for example, I'd never read a 6-book series about public school. I hadn't read Tom Brown's School Days. I knew about it. I'd heard of it, but I didn't know all the characters and the stick figures that Rowling, is obviously parodying and laughing up her sleeve about and celebrating inside the Harry Potter novels.
Yeah.
That stuff is all lost on her audience. And we'll talk about that. That's good.
But they're incredibly popular even today amongst working class, lower middle class, comprehensive school boys and girls, because they're fabulous escapism. Because you rather than going to this comprehensive school and then coming home each evening, you get to have midnight feasts and escapades and adventures. It's pure escapism. I suspect they're nothing like as popular for boarding school students.
It's a good thing there are a lot more comprehensive students, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you that when on my first trip to Wales, because I got my PhD from Swansea in Wales. Of course, I went to bookstores in Swansea. I just walked up and down the streets, and there's lots of bookstores in Swansea. And I was astonished. There were, the Enid Blyton stories. There's the Tom Howard books. I mean, there schoolboy novels and schoolgirl novels. The series were there to purchase. I literally was thinking. I mean, some authors have written multiple series within different schools with different characters. But it's a big deal, and again, all of that's invisible to Americans. Speaking essentially.
I'm going off topic a little bit, but I suspect that may be changing a little bit in the United States. So there's a whole genre of young adult fiction now, dark academia, and a lot of that is sort of set in sort of upper class prep schools, boarding schools, that kind of setting for that genre. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, Lev Grossman did that with his Magician series. That's I get it. I get it. I mean, I guess I'm uniquely situated here in that I went to a public school in the United States, and I also went to an elite prep school. For me, it was like a finishing year, but that I may not have been well read in the genre until I became the dean of Harry Potter scholars. I had to read all these things. I had to write Harry Potter's bookshelf. But I lived in both those worlds. Anyway, how are we going to produce? How are we going to? Casual vacancy. What are you going to tell me about casual vacancy?
Oh, casual vacancy. What, casual vacancy, biographical illusions? John, are you kidding me? We walked through Pagford. We had a cup of tea in Mollinson's tea shop. There is hardly anything in that book that you can't place a biographical allusion next to, not least the setting. Okay,
so you got a target-rich environment.
Yeah.
What are you going to choose? I mean, you don't have to choose right now, but I mean, you have got an idea of what you're going to go about?
I'm gonna go for the geography. I'm going to go for the geography. So other than some changes in terms of elevation, I think almost everything in the Pagford surroundings is identifiable in the place where Rowling grew up.
Which is how far from where you live?
Is less, you shame me, but less than 40 minutes, and I visited twice.
And you blessed me with, I was on one of those trips, I think, right? So I mean, yeah. That's of course 40 minutes in the UK. That's a long way. You know, gosh, it's a short commute in Oklahoma, but boy, these people in Wales, you've traveled in 40 minutes. You traveled through 3 accents. You know what the heck?
Yeah, at least. So what's our plan, John? So we're going to this video, God willing, and with a following breeze, is going to go up on the Substack on the 1st of July. So the first date of the month, and then as quickly as we can record them and I can edit them, guys who are watching the finished product, if it's jumping around, editing is a brand new thing for me for video. So I am learning as I go. Fairly brief episodes,
please,
through the month.
I'm not sure.
Just for your dehydration, John.
Well, I do have some spring water here. My wife has told me I can't come out to the shed without a thing of water.
Okay, so I'm going to sign off for the guys at home. John, I will see you tomorrow, and we will begin our recording of the rest of the series.
Great. I guess this is the beginning of Rowling's online Kanreki. We wish Mrs. Murray a happy birthday as her wood snake 60th birthday celebrations begin. And I want to wish a healthy, hearty, and healthy welcome aboard to all those joining us by Nick's Lake and in my shed to discuss her wonderful works.
Cheerio.
Take care. I'll see you tomorrow, Nick.